Yeah, that's why that's been up there. Our crazy alert for the day. This is incredible. A fellow by the name of Phillips, or a family by the name of Phillips, Mr. Phillips, I guess a fellow by the name of Phillips, applied to U.S. Bank for a modification of his mortgage down in Georgia. And the U.S. Bank said, no, we're not going to modify your mortgage. And so he said, why? Am I not creditworthy? And the U.S. Bank said, we simply choose not to do it. So he sued them. And the judge, Judge Blackmun in the court, says, and I quote, he said, this court cannot imagine why U.S. Bank will not make known to Mr. Phillips, a taxpayer, how his numbers put him outside the federal guidelines to receive a loan modification. And then he goes on to say, he says, taking $20 billion of taxpayer money was no problem for U.S. Bank. A cynical judge might believe that this entire motion to dismiss is a desperate attempt to avoid a discovery period where U.S. Bank would have to tell Mr. Phillips how his financial situation does not qualify him for a modification. Excuse me. And then the judge says, with apologies to folk singer Arlo Guthrie, he said, why doesn't the bank say so? In other words, tell why Mr. Phillips shouldn't be modified. With mathematical equations, pie charts, and bar graphs, all on 8x10 glossy paper, with circles and arrows and paragraphs on the back explaining each winning number.
Man came in, said, all rise. We all stood up, and Opie stood up with the 27 8x10 covered glossy pictures, and the judge walked in, sat down with the seeing eye dog, and he sat down. Opie looked at the seeing eye dog. And then the 27 8x10 covered glossy pictures with the circles and arrows and a paragraph on the back of each one, and began to cry because Opie came to the realization that it was a typical case of American blind justice.
Yeah, well, that was a different story, but there you go. So anyhow, the judge says, I don't see why you can't have mathematical equations, pie charts, and bar graphs all on 8x10 glossy color photo paper with circles and arrows and paragraphs on the back explaining each winning number. He says, maybe U.S. Bank no longer has any of the $20 billion left. And so their lack of written explanation, see, this judge didn't have a seeing eye dog. This judge could actually read these things. And so their lack of written explanation might be attributed to some kind of ink reduction program to save money. Clearly, U.S. Bank cannot take the money, contract with our government to provide a service to the taxpayer, violate that agreement. He's talking about $20 billion from TARP money, and then say no one on earth can sue them for it. That's not the law in Georgia. As our Grits Groceries notes over a Democratic Underground, now that was a smackdown. It's a great crazy alert, too. Okay, Alex in Santa Cruz, California. Alex, it says you disagree with me. You go to the front of the line. What's up?
I don't necessarily disagree with you, but I want to talk about a personal experience, and it's kind of an anecdote, and this is what I get a lot from my conservative colleagues and friends. Those people who took out equity lines of credits, mortgages, second mortgages on their houses, wasn't that their own fault, realizing, and they should have realized that there was a housing bubble, and that it was going to.
So they should have gone to college and studied economics and studied the South Sea bubble and the Dutch tulip bubble and the housing bubble of 1922 to 26, and they should have been able to see that this was bubble behavior and not participated in it, and damn them for not taking an economics course. And by the way, I would submit to you that most professors of economics in this country did not see this coming.
Well, I saw it coming, and my wife and I took out a home equity line of credit. We we took out $40,000 on our mortgage, and we had a baby, and I went to school. But we also I have a brother who has a MBA, and he told us that there was a housing bubble and it was going to explode, and so we sold our house at the top of the market. But I'm just telling you that this is the conservative mind frame. They boil it down to just individual level, and individuals make individual decisions, and we can't look at it any other way. And
which is A, nonsense, and B, here's a statistic for your conservative friends. 50%, fully 50%, actually is slightly more than that. It is a 52, 53% of all the people. Now, you know the difference between a prime mortgage and a subprime mortgage.
Yeah.
Prime mortgage is like, low interest rate, fixed rate, 20, 30 years. You know what you're going to pay forever, and it's solid. And the subprime mortgages were like the adjustable rate mortgages, where they could go up. The banks could pull them. They were subject to all these weird terms, and they were very, very profitable. Didn't make as much money in the first few months. They were like these teaser rates that credit card companies offer. 53% of all the people who received subprime mortgages actually qualified for prime mortgages. In other words, they would not be in trouble right now, but they were not informed of that by the banksters, because the banksters made so much more money off the subprime mortgages. So this was clearly a crime, and it wasn't a crime committed by people who were stupid enough or unfortunate enough not to have either A, studied economics, or B, in your case, having a brother who's an MBA. These were people who were victims of a system that was systematically corrupt and was looting the United States of America while the times were good.
Right, and another point I want to bring up is, if conservatives and Republicans have such a negative view towards human nature and that we're all evil, why do they cherry pick and take exception to the fact that we don't need government regulation when it comes to bad guys or guys on Wall Street doing bad things with the home mortgage economy? I mean, if there's no regulation, if we're all evil, we're all going to do self-interest, and bad things are going to happen.
Yeah, there's a little bit of internal contradiction in that, because along with that comes the notion, the conservative notion is that we're all evil, but the libertarian notion is that if everybody just lets the free market take over, everything will be wonderful. And what they forget is that nature abhors a vacuum, and that if government steps out of an area of governance, for example, if in baseball all the umpires said, we're going to tear up the rule books and start ignoring the rules, somebody else will step in. And in the case of government, when the government regulators step out, the big corporations step in, and they basically take things over, and you end up with monopolies and these disasters. But you're absolutely right. And this was a classic case. Phil Gramm was the man largely responsible for it. The Gramm-Leach-Bliley Bill Act and the Commodity Futures Modernization Act that was promoted by his wife Wendy, that he helped write, and she was at that time on the board of directors of Enron, and this contained the so-called Enron loophole that basically allowed for trading of, quote, commodities on, quote, dark exchanges, these unregulated exchanges. It was illegal before 1999. Hadn't happened ever in the United States. And then it got legalized, and then financial instruments, things like mortgages, got considered commodities, whereas before they were not considered commodities, or at least the derivatives of them were not considered commodities. And so they could be traded. And so we went from zero to $800 trillion worth of these bets on bets on bets, these derivatives based on these bad subprime mortgages that shouldn't have been sold in the first place, not necessarily bought, but sold. And this was all the result of deregulation. And I find it tragic that Barney Frank has announced that he's going to resign. Thank you for the call, Alec. I find it tragic that Barney Frank has said he's going to resign from the House of Representatives and not run for re-election, because, I realize he's a lightning rod. He's a lightning rod because he is so right. He's been so right on all of these things. It's just mind-boggling.